Hey, this is Samantha Scaffidi, and I play Victoria Hayes in the Terrifier franchise, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So I am so excited to be joined by today's guests. Today we are talking all things Terrifier and Terrifier 3 specifically with Samantha Scaffidi, who plays Victoria Hayes in the series. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Samantha.
Oh, thank you for having me, Pat. I'm excited to chat all things Terrifier.
Oh, you are very welcome. Yeah, I'm so excited to break things down with you and just going to give you guys a heads up that this interview will contain spoilers from Terrifier 3. So if you haven't seen the film, definitely make sure you watch it. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably already have, but if you haven't watched the film, come back here and check this out. But man, I mean, just Victoria Hayes, the evolution of that character over these three films. You've essentially gotten to play two completely different characters. So can you just talk about the approach of going into those two characters' mindsets?
Yeah, no, I'm really happy that you distinguish the two characters because I think people they get a little lost thinking that it's Victoria Hayes through to the end, which rightfully so. It's you have to have seen all three, and Victoria Hayes. Oof, it's difficult because I'm excited by both characters. Like I love Victoria Hayes, and when I got to play Victoria, it was a very different approach. It was more realistic, more nuanced. In Terrifier 1, she's just a sister, a daughter. She's at school and she's just trying to study for her midterms, and she gets a phone call and it was a lot of fun playing. I had a full face. So there's a lot of great things to discuss in that regard. But yeah, in that regard, it was just trying to find the authenticity of who this person was. I don't have a sister, but I have brothers, so I try to get as close to that truth of what that relationship is like, and making it that my world, Victoria's world, and what it would be like to go through that ordeal in real time and then the aftermath of that, especially at the end of Terrifier when it's revealed that, she is in fact a disfigured woman. And when she descends into madness and attacks a news reporter. So for that was a more realistic approach. And for the second, in the second film, she's also Victoria Hayes at that point, and she becomes possessed when the eyes they light up. And in that, just trying to get as close again to the truth and finding that nuance of what it would be like to lose everything, to go through that type of emotional trauma, but also that physical trauma of having her identity taken away from her. She was the closest thing to her was her sister, who she loved the most in the world, and then on top of that, her physical identity. She can't even see herself anymore. Um, in the mirror. And so what would that be like, as well as dealing with the ridicule from the outside world who judges? I think that that's something that, we can all relate to. It's
Oh, yeah.
a time in which, social media and people can be a bit cruel and on all that judgment. So what would that be like at that scale? And what would drive a person like that? So definitely like a lot of really intense soul searching.
And I
And then
mean,
yeah, oh sorry. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
just to say, back then, I mean, we thought that, going into the first time watching Terrifier, we thought that the two girls were going to be the final girls in this film. And then, we lose the one sister, you step in, and then, what happens to her? I mean, she's still alive, but, just like what happens to her at the end. So we thought that you guys were going to carry on throughout this franchise. And that was kind of like a rug pull moment watching that's first movie. And then just, yeah, the transformation of, what happens to her at the end of two, and then, coming into three where full on villain mode.
Yeah, well, it's sadly the storylines of the characters are not the happiest storylines, but it sets up, Damien Leone's world, which is that no one's safe.
Yeah.
And kind of what to expect from the future films. And yeah, I was really excited because early on I think right after we filmed Terrifier 2, Damien was going right into the part 3, and he already had ideas and was giving me insight into potentially where this character would go, how she'd come back, even in greater force, which I was excited about because um, she did get kind of not Victoria went through hell, but then also just as an actor, I was like, oh man, this is juicy. How can I love a character but also root for this other direction, which in
Yeah.
a way would be an even more horrific outcome for Victoria. But and that's like the conflict, and for this for the film in which she becomes possessed and like goes into ultimate villain mode, as we were mentioning, it's exciting. It was like such a different approach. I definitely had conversations with Damien early on in the beginning, and um, Damien is like such an artist and a sculptor. I mean, he's already like sculpting the look, so he has an idea of who this is, the energy, the feeling. And with this, he's such a collaborator, and he's always been so. We had discussions about how we would set a possession apart from anything that we had seen before, and
Which is tough because I mean, there's been so many over the decades.
no, so many, and that was something that we had talked about, and he initially was like, I want her manic, I want her to have a foul mouth like she did at the end of two, like let's go even further with that, like um she's childlike, but she's basically Satan, she's a devil, she's a demon, she's black and white. It's just pure evil. As far black as we can go, that's how far. And that was a different approach and an exciting approach because also out of my comfort zone because I had never really been given an opportunity like that in the past. I always was cast kind of in the Victoria or the girl next door type girlfriend or mother and young mother,
Like,
young
let's go.
keyword young mother. But no, so it was exciting and scary, but exciting because I feel like what I thought I knew about myself and then what I experienced was the truth was I feel like this is more of my wheelhouse. This is like where I have a lot of fun, which I don't know what that says about me. I keep saying that, but yeah, so approach wise, we had the discussions, and then he had given me a few references. One of the references was Bette Davis and What Happened to Baby Jane.
Okay.
I had not seen, and I was absolutely floored by her performance. There was such like in that character, there was such a quick shift from emotion, from smiling to then devious. So that was something we were playing with. And then I stayed away from possession, roles. I didn't want to like go back and watch The Exorcist. I didn't want to kind of get that back into my psyche.
Yeah.
Um,
Want to make
but
it your own.
yeah, yeah, no, but I ended up watching like Helen Bonham Carter and Harry Potter because she has this insane cackle.
Oh yeah, Bellatrix. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think she's and I say this often, I wasn't looking to replicate, but more to find inspiration and permission. Like what actors have kind of delved into this villainous, like the Heath Ledger, the Joker, and what how far did they go and be inspired by those performances? So I was extremely inspired by Helen Bonham Carter, especially because her laugh and her cackle was
Oh yeah, she was iconic, and I mean just in
iconic.
general, but I mean the Harry
Yeah.
Potter series for sure. How early on did you find out that kind of the plans? I know you said you guys had conversations. Did you
Mm.
know at the end or shortly after the end of one, kind of what the plans were going to be for Victoria? Or
No, not until after two, because the story goes that we shot with Chris Jericho 2 days to do a final scene where art was supposed to grow out of the back of my head.
okay,
um a movie around that time, Malignant, came out, and it
yeah,
was we're ending. And Damien, we had shot the scene. Victoria would have died because art would have literally been coming out of her head. Um, and Damien's like, we gotta go back to the drawing board. We've got to figure out how to do something different. And then it wasn't even scripted because the script had been written. We had shot it, and we came back. I don't know if it was months later, a month later. I think it might have been months later. I received an email from Damien that was like, so this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to go on in the scene. And Victoria was supposed to be,
that was it.
she wouldn't have made it to part three. And so
Yeah,
then that's when Damien started to get the gears turning. And after we had filmed that, he, I think, started to get the inspiration to bringing Vicky back, but in a very different way.
Wow, we would have had a completely different film with part three if Malignant never, never
Thank
happened, never
you.
came out before. So you're like, thank you, Malignant, for
Oh my God, so much so because I feel like I would have been definitely FOMO watching
yeah.
all and I got to work with Lauren and Antonella and a lot and David again in such a bigger capacity and that's been such a highlight of this whole experience and of course working with Damien, but I wouldn't have had any of that.
And what was your initial reaction as far as just so seeing the script for Terrifier 3 for the first time, just seeing some of the scenes that were in there that you guys were going to be filming? What were kind of your initial reactions to that?
You know, the strongest reaction I've ever had to reading a Terrifier script was Terrifier because Damien mentions it all the time. Terrifier doesn't Art the Clown doesn't like jump off the page. You have to see what David and him do with it, like David
Yeah.
specifically, to understand the comedy. So when you're reading the script, it's just like pure torture. It's just pure violence. And I remember I first got it and I was like not very I didn't understand, the genre that it was a slasher. So I was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? This is like horrific. Um, so that was probably the first experience where it was like so visceral and like, oh my God, this is horrible. Now I understand the world we're working and operating in and being a bit desensitized and also just knowing who Art the Clown is. There's nothing that I've read that I
That was shocking to you.
no, because I think that now that I've been in the world for so long, I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. Let's just go. Like, I know like Damien's going to do something amazing with it. We're going to push boundaries, and I get excited by that.
Yeah.
Um, and and yeah, it's just like fully trusting. It's funny because I end up bringing this up on these calls, but I'm like, or even just interviews where I'm like, okay, the shard of glass scene. Everyone wants to know what that was like to read that.
Yeah.
It has in the script, it was like kind of references it, alludes to it, and then Damien like in parentheses says like, but we'll be done tastefully. So,
Well,
so I
I
just
love that.
yeah, so but watching it is a different story for me. Watching it, I'm in the audience with my eyes being covered and if I didn't have my eyes covered, I would probably be fainting or vomiting. So all the scenes are pretty horrific to me.
Yeah, so you'd be right along with a lot of audience members that before the film was coming out for pretty much all of these movies that people, passing out,
That would
vomiting.
have been me. That would have been me if I was brave enough to actually watch the scenes in their entirety. So,
Yeah. I mean, I remember watching the first one for the first time. I think it was on Netflix because I know I didn't get to see it in theaters. I don't know if it actually did get if it was a like in theaters, it must have been like a smaller release. I'm in New Hampshire. A lot of times we don't get some of the smaller releases, but I did get to see Terrifier 2 in theaters, and I mean, that was an experience just getting to see that with an audience. It was packed, and just the reactions to people on the left and right side of me, especially like the bedroom scene.
mm,
There were a couple people that walked out of
there
the
always
theater
is,
for that,
definitely.
and probably the people where it's like you don't, they came in, they're like, oh, what is this new horror movie that came out, and not really
Oh my
knowing what
God,
to
so many
expect.
of them.
But so those are, and then especially if you see it again, you know what's coming, and just seeing those reactions from people. Now, because I imagine it was probably a lengthy process for you. What was the prosthetic and makeup process? What did that look like for being transformed into Vicky specifically for part three?
Yeah, so the makeup process was a lot more extensive for three than it was for two. It was 6 to 8 hours because there was a lot of it was usually in the first two it was just the head prosthetic and in this we had the second look after the 5 year transition there when I'm coming out of the tub there's arms I've been basically decaying there's leg prosthetics there's face prosthetics there's a lot of different pieces that have to get first put on the body and then painted over extensively so that was a 6 to 8 hour process. I liken it to like a flight from New York to London, and that flight is a lot more enjoyable, uh, and even at times shorter. Um, but yeah, it was an extensive process. But then again, when you see it and it's on you and you get used to it, it makes all that process worth it because then
Oh
You know,
yeah.
with some of the best people in the industry, and you have this amazing artwork that's literally you're wearing it, and then it does a lot of the heavy lifting for the acting.
I was going to ask you specifically for the bathtub scene when you're just sitting in all of that. What was it that what were you actually sitting in? I mean, was it water mixed with different elements in there or?
So it's interesting because yeah, so it's gluten-free brownie batter.
Oh,
And the
okay.
reason why it's gluten-free brownie batter is because I'm slightly allergic. No, I'm not slightly, I'm allergic to gluten.
Yeah.
And so we were afraid that Damien was going to have me eat it potentially. So it was that initially. And then when we realized Damien wasn't going to have me eat it, they put like dead flies and little chips, wood chips in there.
Yeah.
Also, what's really cool about that scene is, well, not cool to film it, but what was really cool in the making of it was Phil and Steve, Phil, the producer, and Steve De La Salle, who's another producer on it, but also doubles a lot for Art the Clown. Just not doubles physically doubles, but like sometimes his arm and his hand and stuff will be filmed.
Yep.
They built a contraption in which once I got in, I was kind of in there for about however long to shoot took to shoot because I'm not fully submerged into the gluten-free brownie butter. And I thought it was initially for my comfort, but then Phil's like, no, it's because we don't have enough brownie batter. Um, so it was a contraption in which it went up to my chest, sitting, and there was about an inch filled with the gluten-free brownie batter.
Okay.
It was basically like this wooden board that they'd fit to the tub and then put a tarp over it so it would keep the liquid in and from
Okay.
seeping down. So we because to fill a tub would have been impossible and insane.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's what
yes.
I was kind of thinking watching it. I'm like, you just sitting there in this tub filled pretty high. I was like, that is a lot. Whatever you are sitting in, I didn't know what it is, but
No,
that,
yeah, it was brownie batter and like I said, just yeah, it was one of my favorite looks though of Victoria in the film is how when she comes out after and that whole, you know,
it
yeah.
actually reminded me a little bit of, I don't know if you've ever seen Return of the Living Dead, the
Mm.
original film. So there is actually both in the first one and in Return of the Living Dead 2, there's a character called Tarman, and
My light on, sorry.
oh
I
no,
had
you're
to
good.
realize how dark it was.
He just has
I start transforming into Vicky as I'm speaking with you. Let me
now that
do
would be that would be
Okay.
fun. But he kind of has like this like goo look to him, and he's just brown, slimy. And as a kid, that guy always terrified me. I don't know what it was, just the look of him, the way that he moved and everything. And there was a little bit of that vibe, her sitting in that tub, that just reminded me a little bit of that. Um, so yeah, that was if you ever get a
Oh,
chance.
I love it. I'll have to check it out because it's one of my favorite of the whole looks. Even though the ending, she has the makeup on, the Art the Clown makeup. I love that might have been the most difficult thing to get out of my hair, but it was
Yeah.
worth it for that image for sure.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other scenes too that I wanted to talk to you about. So Aunt Jess's death scene was so brutal and so
Um,
mean. That was so I've had, I've talked to Lauren and a couple other guests on the channel, and it was one of those scenes where I got mad just because of how much torture poor Sienna's going through in this film. I was like, come on, mess them up,
yeah.
Santa. That scene was so, and I thought someone else, it was a comment on one of the other videos. Was that the scene, do you know, that David almost got, or he got sick on? Was it the rat scene?
Yeah, but it wasn't the rats or like what we were doing to her. It was the fact that we were playing with vomit and he has a thing for vomit.
Oh,
And also he's already starting to get like very uncomfortable. And then as he likes to tell people, brought corn nuts into the scene where I was like eating, but like off camera.
yeah.
Like where I guess they'd also smell the corn nuts and vomit. And he just was like the perfect concoction and he got very uncomfortable. But
I
that was
saw that made,
real cool.
yeah, I saw that made the rounds, and obviously everyone's like, what? Something almost made Art the Clown throw up? What
Yeah,
scene?
I was
What
like,
happened
what was
here?
the blood? What was the violence? It was like, well, it was the vomit.
Although
But
filming that scene, I mean, you got the tube going down the throat, you got the rats going down there and crawling out and everything. Can you
slice it.
talk about filming, breaking down filming that scene like a little bit too, just with, him or with yourself, with David and
Yeah, it's those scenes are always really tough because there's so much going on and there's so many special effects and we had brilliant special effects artists there, Heather and Ryan, where tubes are going into the mouth, but then we're working with Margaret Anne in certain moments, who's is an amazing actress and so lovely to work with. But so we're like we're working with Margaret Ann, and then all of a sudden we're working with just a dummy and someone shaking the dummy. So there's a lot of like moving pieces and trying to shoot it in such a way that's like you have to shoot it chronologically, but also get the moments you need. So it was definitely a very complex scene altogether, even prior that, but the death specifically in that sequence, that the death scene, is intense. It's intense because you are, even though it's filmmaking and it's the illusion that it's really happening, you are working with real people who, Lauren's really tied in that chair because Lauren like broke out of that chair with tape on her arms because she was like really going at it. And Lauren's also the type of performer that even if the camera's not on her, she's giving everything she can for the other people in the scene. So it's very intense. So you're having Lauren who's performing to her best of her to the best, and then Margaret Ann as well, who's emotional and you're doing all these really intense actions. And then you have these rats and they're adorable. They're really cute, but they're also, shitting all over you. And you have
oh
like
yeah.
and for me, I had only like two costumes. So I had like, or one actually specifically for that scene. So it was definitely a lot, but it was really done really well, and each person was very mindful of what each individual was going through. But very technical. These scenes are very technical, so it's kind of hard to process what you're actually doing
Yeah.
to the person until you're watching the film, and then you're like, and even just the way in which Damien incorporates the sound and like I love when
Oh yeah.
oh when
That's one of
Damien
the worst parts is the sound design.
the
When
sound, but also like the sound when David like hits down and then it starts that whole sequence and that music and the sound design comes in, all of it. But to your point, that scene is so brutal and it's so cruel because I know Damien always wanted to bring it back to the original and darker and even grittier. And there is a lot of levity with Art the Clown, but with my character specifically, she's just pure evil and
yeah.
she's a sadist through and through. And so it's kind of bringing it down and going to the extreme to break down Lauren, Lauren's character, Sienna, because that's the whole point. Let's weaken her so that I can ultimately possess her. But
Yeah.
but a lot of moving pieces and a lot of even for production design and art department, Olga Turka and her crew, they were unbelievable. Trying to reset, set, and get all this done. But somehow we did it, and we didn't have a lot of days to do it. So
Yeah.
because they
I
had a
mean,
whole other part of that scene in a chainsaw fight to get through, and we didn't have a lot of time. So
but it's one of my favorite things of talking to you guys, just getting the behind the scenes and your story from actually, because it's one thing watching it play out on the screen, but then you guys actually being there, filming the scene, seeing everything that went into it. I'm a big behind the scenes kind of guy, so I love this kind of stuff, any kind of details. Was there anything?
I'll give you a detail. I remember when I was putting my hand through Margaret Ann's hair or even Lauren's, for example, and my nails weren't fully on, and I would be doing a very serious, intense scene, but then my nail would get stuck in her hair, and I'd have to fish it out. But like moments like that, which kind of break the ice of a
Yeah.
very intense scene for the actors, it creates a bit of a laugh. But yeah,
Was was there anything from like that, and we'll get into the possession scene and everything too in a second, but was there anything from that whole sequence that ended up getting cut out? Because I know talking to some of the other cast members, it sounds like there was a decent amount of footage that didn't make it into it just for runtime, or maybe it
yeah.
didn't necessarily fit in. Like once you guys were done, was there anything from there that you remember that didn't make it into it?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because when I watched it, I did. I there were certain things that did get cut out even just earlier in the film that I had forgotten, which I think is a good sign, right? I didn't miss anything, which
Yeah,
either I have a terrible memory or I mean I always trust Damien that what ends up on the screen is is the only thing that needs to be on the screen. But there were definitely moments that we had filmed. I mean the scene before we had filmed was a lot longer, and I think just because of the days and the amount of shooting we had, we didn't have a lot. We There were even that scene got cut down before we started filming. And then there was yeah, specific scene. I'm not sure if I can say what exactly it was.
okay.
But it was one of people's like kind of favorite moments, not funny moments, favorite moments, dark moments, if it could get any funnier or darker, with Victoria and Antonella, the Gabby character. But but yeah, no, it was cut. And Damien said there's a longer cut that he might release. But I really do believe the one that's there right now is super tight and super.
Is the one that,
It's
yeah,
the one. I think I mean, yeah, it might have been too much, or maybe not at all. I'd have to see it to judge it.
that'd be
But the
cool if we
one
get
that's
it for
there is, yeah.
the steel book, or the release that's coming out. I think it's supposed to come out, if I remember correctly, in December. And I was talking to, I think it was Mason, our conversation, that it would be kind of fun that the film's released now, but it would be kind of fun too if it also, and maybe it'll actually still be playing by that time, but if we get to December, having it, maybe another like limited release, if it's, hits like streaming and stuff like that, just for the Christmas season where the film takes place during Christmas. That'd be fun just to catch it again in theaters around that time.
I'm sure they're cooking something up, especially with the crazy success that,
Yeah, it's
um,
sad so far.
yeah, exactly.
I think I
Yeah.
saw it today. It's in the top four for horror films for box office for the year so far this year.
Oh,
Or
wow.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I thought it was like Lauren or someone that shared it, so I could be. I just
Yeah.
glanced at it like really quick, so I could be wrong, but it was something along those lines. And I mean, to
Yeah.
beat Joker at the box office for its first
And
week,
it's
which
still
is
going strong. I
yeah,
read somewhere, it's funny because I'm always saying the same thing. I'm like, I could be wrong because I saw it somewhere, but there was also I had read somewhere and I think it was someone shared it where it might be the highest grossing unrated film of all
oh
time.
yeah, I think I saw something along those lines too.
Yeah, it's wild. It's making like, not only it's like going beyond people's expectations, and changing, I think, the culture around horror films and unrated films, and but also yeah, history. It's just
It's always I'm a big horror is like my favorite genre.
yeah.
So just getting to see films like this have the success that they have, and then getting to talk to you guys, the wonderful cast and crew that's worked on it, and just happy that you guys have had this success with these films. It's really cool to see. But
Yeah.
yes, going further into that scene, the possession scene specifically was one of the most intense scenes in the movie. Just that exchange between Victoria and Sienna's character. I had asked Lauren, I was like, "Did you use contacts or anything when?" Because her eyes go white in the scene,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and then it starts glowing. And she said there wasn't
yeah.
any contacts for her. So I think it must have just been all CGI or whatever afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you just talk about kind of filming that scene specifically with her? And I mean,
Yeah.
working with such like a powerhouse, both of you guys. I mean, Vicky was, I've seen a lot of people a scene stealer for Terrifier 3. So can you just talk about, working with you two specifically?
Yeah, no, one of the greatest gifts of Terrifier 3 has been getting to know Lauren and work with Lauren. I'm like such a big fan. I like love her as a person. I think she's a powerhouse, but I say this whenever I can. She is a powerhouse. Like she's got that thing, but I've worked with amazing actresses before, actors, and saying this doesn't take away from the fact that they are amazing, but
Yeah.
Lauren was going to some places that people would say, "Oh yeah, they probably got that moment," and that was the time. But she was going there for over and over and over again. And I was like, "Where is she pulling from?" It's kind of that was kind of a highlight for me was working with her, but also observing her and watching her in her element. So that, but Lauren and I are very similar. We want to give everything that we have to those moments, but we're also like very mindful of the fact that, this is an intense scene and there are it's very physical. I'm grabbing her, I'm pulling her back. She's getting hit by, David and all these moments. So it's just constant creating a safe environment and constantly checking in. One thing that's really beautiful about Terrifier is the actors really protect each other. And not that they have to, because, Damien's watching and everyone else is, taking care of us. But really, one thing that was really beautiful, especially in that scene, was the constant checking in, on all of our parts, and especially with Lauren and I, to make sure, like, we'd give it everything we'd have, and then after we cut, we'd check in. Are you okay? How are you doing? And Lauren's funny. She's like, more. And then I'm like, more, let's go. I mean, at one point, Lauren was saying how she was like wanting me to choke her, and I was like, Lauren, I don't feel comfortable choking you. She's like, please, for the acting, I don't want to have to, like, I want it to be real. And I was like, okay. Um, and then we had an amazing stunt coordinator also there who's walking us through it as well, and watching, and a medic and whatnot. But
I could understand that though. It's like you get to a certain point and you're like, okay, I don't know how much farther. Like I'm actually a
yeah,
little
I'm fine
uncomfortable
someone
here.
doing it to me, because then I'm kind of in control and out of control. Because I
Yeah.
get it. Like, as an actor, you want it to be real. You also, in a sick way, want to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
But as the person inflicting the pain, you're like, oh God, something happens. I don't want to, like, be the so.
Yeah. You know, accident or anything like that. You don't want to push it too far. So I totally understand just being kind of leery on your side as far as that goes.
Yeah, no, 100%. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Those were my favorite moments in that. That was such the most intense scene. A lot of everything prior to that was very technical, kills and moving forward. But once we got to that scene, that's where we really got to act, and that's where we got to we did all the preparation we could, and then we showed up and we just gave it everything that we could, and that was, I hope that's what's translated on in that final scene.
Oh yeah, the ending was insane. Like quite the third act to finish off the film. And I know obviously you can't, say anything, but I don't know if I 100% believe that Jonathan is actually dead just because of the off-screen kill. I don't know. I feel like the character, and I've seen a lot of people talking about it, just saying that because at first I was like, oh, that's not Gabby. Like they wouldn't do that. And then, get the reveal that it's Jonathan. But I'm not 100% convinced that it is him just because it wasn't on screen. So we'll see what happens in
We will
four.
see.
But
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, I won't say anything, because you never know with Terrifier, and you
yeah.
never know what Damien decides. I don't know if he's spoken about it or he has spoken about it, but I just won't comment.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I don't
Because I
want
also
to.
love Elliot, so I'm like, Elliot is one of my favorite people. So,
Yeah. But no, I
uh,
mean, yeah, just that the whole ending scene with all you guys involved was amazing.
Chainsaw, oh my God. One thing that made me happy was I was in a few theaters and they did cheer when I died, and that's a good sign.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely a memorable, character. Yeah, what's it just been like collaborating with with Damien? I mean, the guy, he's done everything, from directing, writing, the effects on the films. I know he has a team, working with him like as well, but the guy's just created this world. So what's it been like? I mean, you're a filmmaker, yourself. What's it been like to have that collaboration with this guy over these three films?
I love Damien. I say it all the time and I can't say it enough. I'm so impressed, inspired is, like, I think the best word. I, I came into Terrifier, and I would say that we all were just getting to know each other. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be like, how are we going to make a film out of this? We have no money, we have no people. It's probably just coverage. And then I saw the film and I was like, holy shit. Like, how did that, how did we do that? And then same with the second and the third. It's like, even though we had a little bit more money, it's not it, like, Damien's writing $100 million film in his mind. We're trying to achieve that. So it's never enough. And somehow, even on the third film, even though he had more support and didn't have to do the special effects, he's still doing a million things and still not sleeping. One thing that I've observed in Damien is Damien's like the hardest worker I've ever seen. Like, literally does not sleep, does not stop. And he really cares, and he's really passionate, and he listens, and he cares about the fans. And to go back to, just observing him, so many opportunities he could have taken, prior to this moment, that would have changed the course of Terrifier, that would have definitely diluted down the vision. And I wouldn't have faulted him,
Yeah.
'cause it would have made complete sense. more money, make your life a little bit easier. You killed yourself for however many years, but he stuck to his guns. And I think that that's rare in life, not even just in our industry, but to really just, he's like the epitome of like, do you want one cookie now or three later? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, observing that is amazing. I've never seen someone with such an intense belief in himself, in his collaborators, and he's extremely collaborative. He is open to ideas, but then he is very specific in his vision. And it's been amazing because the first two films I've really got to build that trust. And then the third film, it's very rare to be able to spend this much time in a collaboration. So by the third one, I was being asked to go into an area in which I was unfamiliar with the specific character, but as sometimes I had a little bit of worrisome thoughts of like, oh, will I be able to do it? Will it work? I said, at the end of the day, when we call cut, if Damien's happy, I know we've got it because I
Yeah.
trust him implicitly that, like, yeah, it's just it's a very rare collaboration, and to have that type of trust and safety, and to be with someone like him who's just a genius. He's doing a million things, and then in his head there's a million things going on with the music, the this, the that, and you're like, scream louder. Why am I screaming loud? And then the music comes in when you're watching, and I'm like, oh, that's why I was screaming louder, because he's hearing it and seeing it all in real time.
Yeah, I think it's nice when you have someone that is wearing that many hats in a film because, like you were saying, he knows exactly what he's looking for, where he's done every aspect of this film. When he's shooting something, he knows exactly what he's looking for. It's not necessarily something that's like, oh, we'll kind of, see how things, play out. Nope, he knows exactly like what shot, or like you said, you want to, can you scream a little bit louder here? So I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
mean, there definitely were
great.
moments where I'm like, Damien, really? And Damien's like, just trust me, just trust me. He's like, I have the music in my head in this moment. It's hard. Like he just knows the genre through and through. And like I said, he's like a genius. He's literally got like a million things going on, and he already knows what the edit looks like, and he's editing it too.
Yeah,
And
which
I know
is
Was also on this, and a huge part of making this film happen in the editing process. But Damien's been editing these three films.
yeah, which I don't understand where the
Straight
guy.
out the gate, by the way, he didn't take a vacation. He didn't go 2 weeks to like come down. He went straight
Yeah.
into editing. He was editing as we were shooting.
And not only that, but then I mean I've seen he's been doing a ton of interviews and press and traveling and everything. I already announced that Terrifier 4 is in the
Stuff.
works, and it's yeah, his ethic is just insane. It's like how do you do it?
Listen, I can't complain ever because I've witnessed that, and I'm like, all right, step up my game. Like,
It's
no
almost like,
complaining.
does he set the bar almost too high that you're like, will I can I get to that, that level of just working? I know myself, it's just tiring kind of thinking about it.
I think there's certain people that are probably made for that type of working. If I
Yeah.
tried to do that, my body would shut down. So
Yeah,
even if I
just
wanted to, I wouldn't be capable. I
yeah.
imagine. But I can appreciate it. I can for sure appreciate it. And it can motivate me to do a little bit
Yeah.
more, for sure.
And why? I mean, now three films in, going to be a fourth not too far down the line. Why do you kind of think that Terrifier fans have just connected so passionately with this franchise? Because I go to these conventions, I go to just a bunch of conventions in general, but the horror conventions, and everyone that I go to, there's always a big line for all the Terrifier guests. You'd see the people all dressed up in the different costumes and everything. The theaters are sold out that I've seen them in. So you guys have such a passionate fan base. Where does that inspiration kind of come from, you think?
Oh my goodness. I think the main thing to realize is Damon's been doing this forever, ever since All Hallows Eve. Like it's been almost 20 years that this character's been living with him. And it's been, everyone, it feels like it's overnight, right? It feels like
Yeah.
all of a sudden it just like hit. But Damien and David have been, Damien has been doing it for a long time, and David, once he started doing Terrifier, they started doing conventions, and some of us had been doing conventions as well. And but Damien and David had really been out there and connecting to the fans, and we joke that like back in the day, people were like, "What's that film? And who are these people?" And then all of a sudden, when you meet Damien and you meet Dave, they're the nicest, people who love film and will talk to you about it. So there was a natural, I think people have been like, well, those are some nice people, and that looks kind of interesting. And then all of a sudden it just word of mouth, and really was fan led. I mean, the second film got completely funded
Yep.
by the fans. And so it's a combination of that slow build over, more than a decade, even prior to Terrifier. But also Damien's a fan. He's a horror fan through and through. He's a geek. He knows also what he misses in horror,
Yeah.
fan himself since he was a kid. And I think that he makes the films that he would want to watch, that he knows that other people would want to watch. He listens, he he's obviously not taking anyone's ideas, but he listens to
Yeah.
fans. Oh, I love that Art the Clown, and then he took that, and yeah, I think it's a combination of that slow build and the fans coming along, and then just that vision and that genius and that authenticity. And then David's like, David's an amazing performer and an amazing person. What he brings to art is just next level. And yeah, and all these people, Phil, believing in Damien and loving. Phil talks about all the time, the producer, he started it because he wanted to learn about special effects. And he says it all the time. He loves more of the creative side than he does all the business side, even though he did a
Yeah.
lot of that three. And that's the heart behind it. And then you have the artists who make up the cast who believe in Damien and believe in what we're doing. And then you get like a Lauren Lavera who's just like, star in the making and just it and who cares about her character and goes as far as she can go. And that authenticity and that passion, and then like, and I'm just hitting like the top level people. I'm not even
Oh yeah.
mentioning the production designer is Olga Turka, who's been in two and three, who is an artist through and through, and the people that she brought who care, who aren't sleeping as well, who are in taking days off. And who are literally bleeding. Sweat. Lauren said once, it's funny, she took the words right out of my mouth, blood, sweat, and tears. Everyone's, crying
Yeah.
and sweating and just trying to make it. And I think that all of those factors combined with, then obviously a horror, the what the horror genre does for people on a deeper level, I think are what really makes Terrifier special.
Yeah, I think horror's got some of the, for me at least personally, it's got some of the most passionate fans in just the film community. Like I said, going to these different conventions, seeing the people, just talking to the different actors and saying, what this specific film means to me. But yeah, you can definitely tell there's a lot of passion behind these projects. And I think that goes a lot of way that people can connect with that and everything else, like you said as well. It's just, yeah, like I said, it's not like this giant Hollywood blockbuster movie, franchise or anything like that. And I'm sure Damien probably had been approached by some of those bigger studios and he decided to go this way instead. And I'm glad that he did too, because I don't know, I feel like sometimes if you go that you have other people that are like, well, we don't necessarily like you can do this, but we don't want you to do this, and then maybe lose it a little bit there. So I'm glad that you guys ended up going the route that you did.
No, I saw him grilled at conventions. People were like, "So, are you going to sell out?" Like literally, people would say that. And Damien's like, "Well, Damien's like literally getting flown out to LA and the biggest studios. Everyone's like, this could be you." And Damien's like, "Oh," but no,
I'm sure it's a lot.
yeah, of course. But Damien also, he knew what we had, and he knew what he was doing. And also, yeah, like we said, the fans, like I'm a complete convert to the horror genre. I didn't grow up on it, so I say time and time again, and Damien said that might be the biggest compliment that I'm completely been converted into the genre. But has been the biggest blessing has been meeting the fans and learning why they love the films and learning what it means to them. Those are kind of the moments that mean the most, I think, for me at least, and I imagine as well for some of the other players involved. But it really is kind of it's just wild. And it really is it's fan driven, this success, because without the fans early on we wouldn't have two, and we wouldn't have that word of mouth, and even just the fans coming out, and now it's become this phenomenon, which I think it's gone even just beyond that.
Oh
So
yeah, it's crazy.
people just want to watch their friends squirm in the theater and don't even care about the violence anymore.
A lot of the merchandise and stuff that you see hit stores for Halloween, you see them pop up on eBay for like two, three times the price because people are just trying to get these different things because they love these characters in this franchise. And yeah, it's become kind of it's one of the most popular modern horror franchises out there today and just has
So,
made such an impact in the horror genre. So for you personally too, Samantha, what does that mean to you as an artist, as a creative? To be having been involved in something that just has connected with people on such a deep level. And because I think that's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only done like extra roles. I haven't done like anything like big, feature movies or anything like that. But you want to create something that connects with fans and that's talked about for years and years down the road, right?
yeah, yeah. You look, you want to earn your stripes. You want to earn the audience's attention. And I think as an artist, it is a difficult road because you want us to be successful, but sometimes that road is a lot longer and it's a
Yeah.
lot harder. And I think it's important to remind yourself always why we do what we do, and at least why I got into it was the storytelling. It was to tell stories, it was to Trojan horse some of these really beautiful existential,
Yeah.
thoughts and get conversations started to push boundaries like Terrifier is doing. So as an artist, to be that little engine that could, to be a part of that and to see it reflected back, like I said, the biggest thing is I think when you're young as an artist, you're like, oh, there's so many things I want to do and it can be a bit self-involved. And I
Yeah.
definitely was, I'm sure, without realization like that in my 20s. But now like we were in Sitges in Barcelona, outside of Barcelona for the festival, and it was so amazing to see people cheer and clap, a 1,200 seated theater, to see people cheering and clapping, but coming out of the theater smiling and laughing and being like, what was that? We were all able to share in that like experience, but we
Yeah.
were able to give that experience. Um,
That's what
and
about going to the movies is all about.
exactly, like it transports you. And you go to the movies for different reasons, and I think that it's really amazing to see how many people, because, I think also I've met a lot of fans who have said some pretty poignant things about what horror means to them and how it, has gotten them out of the darkest places in their life. And that's a really beautiful thing to know, that people are finding comfort or, encouragement from these films. But it's been a surreal journey, and it's really satisfying, yeah, to earn that time, but also to make people laugh and smile and feel something, and to give them that escape. So that's what I would love to do. I mean, if in my 20s I felt like, oh, I really want to do this and say that. Now I'm like, I want to earn their time, and I want to have people enjoy and feel like that hour and a half, 2 hours that I took of their time, that it was earned, and that they were grateful for it and that I was grateful for it. And it was this weird journey that we're all going on,
Well,
learning to live.
you've definitely done it, in this franchise, in three specifically. And like I said, I've seen a number of conversations online just saying how Vicky was really one of the standouts for the film. So I mean, that's, congratulations again just on the success of the movie. To wrap things up for you, is there anything else that you want to say just about Terrifier in general? And is there any other projects that you have coming up that you are allowed to talk about? Because I know sometimes, not necessarily able to, and just where can fans keep up to date with you moving forward?
Yeah, no, I would say the one project that I can talk about was that I directed a short film that premiered or had its world premiere at Fright Fest. It's a psychological horror, and it just did its premiere stateside at Nightmares Fest in Ohio and at Scream Fest in Orlando. So that is something that I'll make an announcement at some in the near future of where maybe that can be seen, whether it's online or elsewhere. But that would be the one thing that and slowly I had moved into directing in 2019 as well. So I've been writing and developing my own films. So there'll be more to come.
I love that it was a horror film too, specifically where you said that you
Yeah.
weren't someone that grew up on horror, but then your first film, a short film, is a horror film. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. It makes no sense. I jokingly was like, "Oh, okay, this is what came out of me," because I wrote it. I wrote it, and I talked to David about it, and I'm like, "What have you done to me?" Um,
Yeah, look at the influence you've
literally.
had on me.
Oh my God, I'm like literally obsessed. I love the fans. I love the world and there definitely is something that I'm working on that I can't say much about that is in that supernatural horror, feature
Perfect.
length. So there'll
Well,
be more.
you're on Instagram, right? What's the Instagram
Oh,
handle? 'Cause
yeah.
I'll put it down below.
Yeah, it's my first initial and my last name, so it's SSCAFFIDI at or yeah, the in the Instagram, not at. I almost gave you my email.
Yeah.
But it's S Scaffidi. And that's I'm only on I have profiles on Twitter and TikTok just so people don't create other
Yeah.
profiles, but I don't use them. And Instagram I pop on once in a while, but it's all very overwhelming.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. I totally understand that. Well, hey Samantha, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It was honestly wonderful getting to chat with you. Just talk all like I said, all behind the scenes stuff. That's one of my favorite things as a film fan, and I'm a big fan of the Terrifier franchise. So just thank you for your time, and you're welcome back anytime in the future.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Hey, this is Samantha Scaffidi, and I play Victoria Hayes in the Terrifier franchise, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.